I appear to be in a digital dimension.
It's safe to say that back in the heyday, Sega was the Dreamworks to Nintendo's Disney. Fresh during the console wars, Sega had been pushing out new franchises, each with its own set of heroes and villains. While Nintendo's villains are mostly well known, you're more likely to find someone who knows who Mad Scienstein from Wario Land is than you are to find someone who knows who Janken The Great is. Let's fix that, shall we? Or at least try to. I'm Kifinosi with One Up Binge, and today we're going over the Sega villains from least to most evil. Rules are pretty simple. Basically, we're only going for one villain per franchise, and we will be ranking them from the evil all the way down to the most heinous. First up in this villains gallery lineup is the Kapucapus from Choo Choo Rocket. These cats are after our mice, hunting them down through their puzzles in order to eat and feast on them. They follow the same rules as the Choo Choos and are guided by arrows on the ground, even if this leads to their demise. And if you're aware of how we treat animal villains who really just want to eat, mark this phrase off your bingo cards. This is pretty much just nature. Yeah, sorry to say, but the cats that just want to mindlessly eat mice really aren't that bad. If they had another food source that was stable and not alive, odds are they would be more than content just eating that. We really can't call cats that just want to eat to survive evil. Next up is the pair of protagonists, the Bonanza Brothers. Robo and Mobo Bonanza are a group of thieves, constantly stealing anything they can get their hands on. Being the main characters of an arcade game, they're after money and getting the biggest bang for their buck from these heists. However, there's one thing keeping them from being higher up: the plot in international releases. Here, the Bonanza Brothers are retired criminals and are now investigators. They're actually helping the police this time around, using their former skills to get the evidence needed for their clients. However, considering how their story in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing ignores this fact, it's safe to say that they're at least still thieves, but their story for ports overseas is what saves them from being too high up. For a surprisingly tragic villain here, we have Father Baldur. In his past, he was actually a benevolent figure called Masked Lumen, who hated the witch hunts and wanted them to end. Sure, he fights against Bayonetta, but it's due to him being tricked by making him think Loki is the cause of Rosa's death, but after finding out the truth, he does stop his pursuit and focuses on the true threat. However, after fighting Lofter and letting him get sealed inside himself, he ends up accepting his fate of getting corrupted by him, even asking Bayonetta to put him down when the time is right for him to die. As such, while he does end up starting out as a villain in the first game, we can't really fault him for his genocidal plans and actions, knowing that Lofter is pulling the strings inside of his mind. Even after almost dying, Baldur kept Lofter inside his mind, ensuring that he dies alongside himself. Overall, despite the evil actions he caused at first, with his past taken into account, we can't really say that Baldur is a true villain when he's being used as a puppet. Attention all pimps, players, and pain purveyors. Our next slot is the Black Baron. This villain in Mad World revels in the bloodbath going on around him. He introduces the bloodbath challenges, eager to see them in action, only for his assistant to find a way to get him killed by these challenges. At the end of Jack's quest, he's the final opponent he has to face, and he's a tough man to beat. However, after that, he ended up becoming a bounty hunter in Anarchy Reigns, showing that he actually has a love for Matilda, making sure she's safe. He also respects Jack, even after Jack pretty much beat him to the point of death in their last fight, even giving him condolences about Stella. As loud and crass as he can be alongside the body count to back it up, you'll probably be fine brushing up against the Black Baron, just don't touch Matilda.
Hell yeah! Wrath of the Dead Rabbit is next with
Poison Cindy. As the ruler of Hell, Ash has to be treated seriously. When he finds out that someone has taken a picture of him with his rubber ducky, he wants to find out who took that picture, and the culprit is Poison Cindy. She wants to take over Ash's spot in Hell and to send her minions out to try and find some blackmail material. Possessing Ash's own cousin, she definitely is willing to do anything to steal the position from Ash. As crazy as Hell can be, it's probably better for Ash to be on the throne rather than Cindy. Enter the House of the Dead, courtesy of Caleb Goldman. The main villain of the series, Caleb believes he's doing the right thing by trying to control human population growth. In response, he ends up creating the zombie apocalypse the series is stuck with, though he genuinely didn't want this. Basically, think Thanos, but with the zombie apocalypse instead of the Infinity Gauntlet. Even after dying in the first game, however, Caleb still ends up affecting the story in later games, namely House of the Dead 4. His plan here, however, is a bit more generous, with him basically warning the AMS about Pandora's box, tricking them to take out the world by leading them to him by saying he was going to use nuclear weaponry. He really couldn't do it himself due to the whole being dead thing. He's a true villain, but at least he genuinely tried to help humanity in his own way. For Sega's most popular villain, we have Dr. Eggman. This evil genius is out to destroy the woodland creatures by using them in his machines. Constantly thwarted by Sonic, he keeps trying to up his game over and over again, trying to get more and more powerful beings to work for him. Some of these work out, like the Time Eater, and other times it's Dark Gaia knocking him away. He also isn't that great of a boss to Orbot and Cubot, constantly belittling them. However, he still is genuinely impressed by Sonic and his crew, even if he would never admit it to their faces. And when his creations do work out, he's genuinely impressed by them. The most noticeable one here, and the reason he's so low despite his wrath and rage against Sonic and getting the Earth messed up in his schemes, is Sage. Eggman grows incredibly fond of her during Frontiers, praising her for her hard work, and sees her as his daughter, getting incredibly upset at the idea of losing her when she goes to face the end with Sonic, and brings her back from her supposed death. Overall, he's definitely Sega's most famous and variable bad guy to date. For the villain of A Warring Nation, next is Prince Maximilian. The main threat in Valkyria Chronicles, he's here to invade Gallia to steal their Valkyrian artifacts, starting a war that ends up with others getting killed off. He's even able to manipulate and emotionally abuse Salvaria to his advantage, practically mistreating her and conditioning her to do whatever he wants, even if it means dying for him. However, he's not really doing this for himself. As the anime shows, he's kind of pushed into this situation out of desperation, trying to keep control of his empire that his family is causing problems in. Of course, with how he acts in the anime, which he is definitely more despicable in there, he's also just cracking under the pressure of everything. While it isn't an excuse for his behavior, it at least gives context as to why he's acting like this. Plus, Maximilian still respects the rules of war and hates it when others try to betray their country. As much of a villain as he is, he's one that's just struggling with his own troubles back home. Time for a report on Chief Blank. As the CEO of Space Channel 5, Chief Blank sends out Ulala to report on the alien dancing sensation that's popped up. At first, he seems nice and friendly enough, being the boss of Ulala. However, thanks to her efforts, she was able to figure out just what's been going on. Blank's the one brainwashing the Morolian race into dancing, all in the name of getting a good story. He also seems to be infatuated with Ulala to the point of creating evil robot clones of her. It definitely was for the best that he was shot out into outer space in the end. For a cult classic villain, we have Shenmue's villain Landi, real name Longshun Zhao. Landi is responsible for the death of Ryo's father, Iwao. This prompts Ryo to seek revenge against him. Landi's goal is to acquire the dragon and phoenix mirrors, which would release a monster that would destroy the world. His brutal fighting style is one that matches his ambitions, to say the least. He's at least honorable enough to let his opponents die like warriors, letting them try to fight him and die standing, and even complimenting Ryo for improving his fighting. Still, Landi's definitely someone who isn't that friendly. Riding into our next spot is the Dark Dragon from the first Panzer Dragoon. Unlike the Kapucapus, who were at least animalistic in their mindset of just wanting to eat to survive, this dragon is a bit more malicious. He actively tries to reach the tower in order to become a much more powerful form, killing anyone in his way. He even ends up killing the original rider of the Blue Dragon, leading them to have Kale Fluge control their former dragon before dying, telling them to stop the Dark Dragon. While the Imperial forces are focused on controlling the land, the Dark Dragon ends up being a much more powerful threat than them and their weaponry, and is only taken down by Kale and his new dragon, cementing it as a bigger evil than the Imperial army, and thus this high up on the list. Time to take down the man, or rather in this case, Goji Rokaku. The villain of Jet Set Radio, this man is someone who wants to own the entire world. Upon realizing there are some things money can't buy, surprise surprise, he becomes so confused and angered by this, he seeks out a record called the Devil's Contract, wanting to bargain with him in order to own the world. Hearing how a Rudy, a graffiti artist who lives with other graffiti artists to form a group called Coin, had it, he sent his agents out to kill him for it, and anyone else standing in his way. In the end, it was just some old indie record that Goji falsely believed was the real deal. Alongside the tragedy of killing an innocent bystander, his willingness to try and make a deal with the devil showed everyone just how horrible Goji could be. Time for a round of rock, paper, scissors with Janken The Great. Alex Kidd's main enemy, Janken, is an alien invader from the planet Janbarik. Seeing the planet Ares, he plans on ruling the entire planet, launching an attack on it. Despite this barbaric approach to conquering this planet, he was lenient enough to allow Alex Kidd the chance to face him in a game of rock, paper, scissors, even if it meant he would die if he lost. Granted, he was certain he wouldn't lose, so it wasn't that nice, but in these kinds of lists, it still counts for something. Coming to life next is Mortis from Comics Zone. This villain was created by the comic artist Sketch, made to just be a character in his story. However, a stray lightning bolt hits Sketch's house, turning his comic real, with Mortis escaping. Now very much alive, Mortis instantly throws Sketch into the comic world, trading spots with him. He then proceeds to hunt him throughout the game, turning the comic Sketch's inn into a nightmare by painting in enemies, fires, and the works to try and kill him and finally become fully real. Really, the only thing keeping him down was that he was literally made to be a villain, and thus probably didn't get that much free will when he became real. Still, he's definitely a character for the trash bin. For another meta-type boss, we have Heady Metal from Kid Chameleon. Originally just a boss in a virtual reality game called Wildside, he gained sentience one day and managed to escape it. Soon after, he starts to kidnap kids that play his game. Now it's up to Casey to become Kid Chameleon and save them. Why he's kidnapping these kids? It's not really well explained. This was just one of Sega's earliest titles and became well known for just how tough it was. Safe to say, we're really getting into the dubious side of villains here. Time for a dance-off against Rhythm Thief's boss, Napoleon Bonaparte. The villain for Rhythm Thief and the Emperor's Treasure, he's here to rebuild his empire from his days as Emperor. He does this by sending out his own army to attack Raphael and Marie, wanting to try and take the parts for the Dragon Crown alongside kidnapping Marie. His end goal is to activate the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, using them as a powerful weapon to take control. However, he knows that he isn't actually the real deal and is, in reality, just called Leonard Bonar. He's acting in the stead of the real Napoleon, who's still recovering his former strength, with them both planning on destroying Paris for the real Napoleon to rebuild his empire. Still, fake or not, Napoleon is better off in the history books. Time for a real dark villain with the Dark Raven. The villain of Billy Hatcher's story, he and his army of crows take over Morning Land, planning on bathing the land in an endless night. When Billy and his friends get sent to this world, they're able to start fighting back against this threat. As we learn from Menifuni, these crows aren't only out to rule this Morning Land, but use this as a chance to rule the human world as well. Dark Raven's even willing to strap Billy's friends, who are all kids mind you, up, and put a bomb next to them to kill them off. He's literally willing to kill children just to accomplish his goal. That's definitely a sign of a true villain in our eyes. Beware the streets, now that Mr. X is on the prowl. The recurring villain of Streets of Rage, he's behind Wood Oak City's crime syndicate never going out of business. Spreading his crime syndicate's wings to Wood Oak City, he's been confronted and stopped by ex-cops Adam Hunter, Axel Stone, and Blaze Fielding. After this defeat, he takes revenge by kidnapping Adam, only to get his body destroyed in return, leaving him as a brain to continue operations until he's permanently killed in 3. As a mob boss who prioritizes his own enjoyment over others by using a minigun in a beat-em-up, even if his own minions are killed by it, he's definitely a vile mob boss. Adding onto this pile is Death Adder from Golden Axe. In a land where an axe is capable of granting incredible power to whoever wields it, Death Adder is the first villain in this series to grab and use it. He rampages across the land of Yuria, capturing it alongside the king and princess. He also leaves a body count, prompting the heroes to chase after him. In The Revenge of Death Adder, he not only returns to revamp his war conquest, but in the end, even manages to kill off Gilius, even if he dies himself as well. Again, at least you can't say he isn't true to his name. He does indeed add to the death counter. Regardless, it was definitely for the best that Axe, Gilius, and Tyrus defeated him for good and stopped his warpath. From one man to an army, we have the Phantom Army from Tembo the Badass Elephant. Shell City is under attack, and no, it's not from Plankton or a group of vengeful sea creatures against the scuba diver, it's from this Phantom Army. They're planning on taking over this city, taking everyone they see as prisoners of war. However, as the story progresses, a twist is revealed. The captain of the Phantom Army is actually an old ally of Tembo and the General Krenman, Denmoor. He's been corrupted by the Phantom Stone and became the new leader of the Phantom Army while under the stone's possession, and Tembo ends up not only destroying the Phantom Stone, but also Denmoor himself. It's a tragedy that this stone led to so many deaths, including someone who was forced into evil. The Doctor is in for this next entry, the Dr. Bad Boon, that is. The villain of a fair share of Super Monkey Ball games, this primate's brain is set to activate neurons whenever he sees Mimi. He has the hots for her, even though she not only rejects him, but is also married to Ai. In his quest to get Mimi, he goes back in time to try and steal her from Ai. When she rejects him, he steals all the bananas from Ai's home, the Jungle Island, and on top of that, tries to destroy the island with an explosive bomb inside of a volcano. After that failed, he went on to try and ruin Ai's reputation by using robotic duplicates of him before going to his last resort of the game, being him making all the bananas in the world taste terrible. He pretty much has Bowser beat for being too dedicated to following his heart, no matter what evil things he does. For a whole clan of evil, we have the Zed organization. The criminal group the Shinobi franchise has to deal with. They deal with the underworld of criminal activity, from terrorism to kidnapping students to thievery, only being stopped by Joe Musashi. Their end goal is to bring forth a new golden age of ninja with another feudal age of Japan. Definitely an era that would create a lot more bloodshed. Rebranding themselves as Neo Zed, they went even darker and started killing members of the Oboro clan as revenge for what Joe did, even kidnapping his wife-to-be just to add more salt to the wound. Even after this defeat, they just got even more powerful with new high-tech weaponry to threaten the world. Points for persistence, negative points for literally everything else. Our next threat is the villainous group of the original Sakura Wars, Hive of Darkness. These guys plan on stopping Western influences by taking hold in Japan, and have resorted to destroying magical seals in order to unleash an evil army of demons. As you do. Their leader, Tanaki, is controlling the army at first, however, Aoi Satan ends up taking the mantle. Originally a hero by the name of Shinnosuke Yamazaki, after his death he was revived and possessed by Satan himself in order to become Aoi Satan, wanting to take over Japan. Yeah, there are a lot of possessions going on in SEGA villains, I just realized. Regardless, this army is still a giant threat and one that should be treated as such. Get ready for a real nightmare with Wiseman the Wicked. The villain of the Knights series, Wiseman is the god of nightmare and the creator of all nightmarens plaguing the land of Nightopia. He wants to transform the pleasant dreamscape of the night dimension, namely Nightopia, into a nightmare horror land. Even after all that, he wants to use these nightmares to travel into the real world to cause even more mayhem. It's just never enough. His own workers aren't even safe, with him killing lower-ranking minions for failing him and threatening to kill Reala if Knights isn't stopped. However, he does end up accidentally doing one good thing, creating Knights themselves. He created Knights in Reala to be top-ranking henchmen for him, with free will of their own. Knights took this free will and became their own person, becoming an obstacle against Wiseman's army. Really, if the only good thing he did was on accident, Wiseman probably isn't that nice of a guy, if his title being the Wicked isn't a dead giveaway. The Scourge of the Skies is next, and his name is Grand Admiral Galcian. The villain of Skies of Arcadia, this man is behind the Armada invading Arcadia. Wanting to use the moon crystals to activate the 6 powerful Gigas, his plan is to take over the world with them. While Empress Theodora is thought to be the one in control, he soon takes full control, wanting to rule the world with his rebellion formed in the Armada army, becoming the new villain. While Galcian is shown to have some morals, like hating slave traders and traitors to their own ship, and respecting Gregorio even after his death, this doesn't put him past his own treachery and his destruction of the entire Valuan continent. He's only after power and would step over whomever he needs to in order to achieve his goal. Just barely outside of the top 3 is the threat to an entire solar system, Greedy. Restar's solar system is under threat thanks to Greedy coming in. He's here only to spread misery and grief across the planets, sending his henchmen out to all the planets in the solar system to corrupt them for his own army and brainwashing residents into serving his crew. He even had his crew working on a black hole generator, making it so that he could suck up all the happiness from the solar system. He's not just here to get what he wants, but to actively ruin the lives of others for his own amusement. For the Bronze Medal of Evil, it's the Millennium threat, the Dark Force Army. Every millennium, or 1,000 years, this threat pops up in the Phantasy Star universe, ready to cause chaos and mayhem all over the planet. The main threat of the first 4 games, every time it gets defeated, it returns after a millennium, feeding off the hatred of the profound darkness. However, with the 4th game, there's one fact that makes it a bit more sympathetic. It's practically fighting for its life and freedom, as its direct enemy is the Great Light, and neither can coexist at the same time. While its existence would ensure that others would die eventually, it feels less like an active evil threat and more like a cornered animal trying to survive. Still though, its evil actions can't be overlooked, and as such, it's this high up. For our Silver Medal of Evils, we have a threat to the timeline. The alien invaders in Echo the Dolphin. These aliens are led by the Vortex Queen, wanting to eat the aquatic life forms and use the dolphins to feed their army after losing the ability to grow their own food. Being stopped by Echo, they then try to take over the world, using Echo's time traveling to create a bad future where they flat out destroy the entire planet after killing Echo's descendant, Trelia. In the reboot for the series, they decided to try and take the dolphins' noble traits, creating multiple bad futures for the planet, be it by causing humanity to go extinct, the dolphins and humans being driven to war, or them just outright taking over the planet. No matter the timeline, these alien invaders are nothing but trouble for everyone involved. Finally, our gold medal of evil, and good luck trying to pronounce this name. It is Nyarlathotep from the Persona series. I think I did a pretty good job. The opposite of Philemon, this demon is the representation of evil in the hearts of humans everywhere, and constantly works in secret on Earth to move the story along to his own desire. His goal is to bring forth the complete destruction of humanity just for his own amusement. His actions led to a world in ruin at the end of Innocent Sin, with him pretty much destroying the entire world, leading to eternal punishment, resetting the entire game to pretty much make it so that the world isn't completely destroyed. While Nyarlathotep hasn't been seen after this game and his defeat, his ungodly aspirations of watching humanity suffer over and over again, and succeeding in destroying Earth at least once already, has more than earned him the gold medal of evil.